course, continuing A to Z's horror. Today is H for Harlequinade, and I want to show you Bookmark. This is from the amazing, wonderful people over at Fort Witch. You can also see her on Instagram. She's got like 1 million Instagrams. I'll probably just link them all. But it's this little cute ghost. She made other ones. I'm going to show the other one next week. But it's even got this really nice little. Seriously, is a really strong bookmark. So thank you, Di. Today is H for Harlequinade. So we are going to talk about. Quote, I'm very interested in fools. Fools obsess me and always have. Clowns too. Punch has always fascinated me because he's so cool and so funny at the same time. Clive Barker. Quote, I want my makeup simply to add to the picture, to show at a glance the sort of character I am portraying. But I want my roles to go deeper than that. I want to dig down into the mind and the heart of the role. But as a man's face reveals much that is in his mind and heart, I attempt to show this by the makeup I use, and the makeup I use, and the makeup is merely the prologue. Lon Chaney Jr. Opposite, the clown at midnight, Lon Chaney Sr. at Laugh, Clown, Laugh. There's also a list, clowns in the movies. The great silent horror actor Lon Chaney Sr. once said, a clown is funny in the circus ring, but what would be in the normal reaction to opening a door at midnight and finding the same clown standing there in the moonlight? Adults seem to think that clowns are great entertainment and good for you too. Kids, being younger and somewhat wiser, aren't so sure. Robert Bloch, the author of Psycho, agreed with Chaney. That to me is the essence of true horror, the clown at midnight. Horror is something peculiar in the individual. A small child and quite frequently an adult's fear of the dark, and most particularly the phantoms of the imagination that populate the dark. The fear of a human being who doesn't act, think, or look like the human being. According to Jason Korach, a clown with the anarchic circus, Archaeos, the natural response to terror is initially to laugh, which is why if a child fears that he or she is threatened, they will laugh because they're not actually aware of the possible violence and damage and pain. I think an audience comes on a journey with you, and with us, it's always a bumpy ride. There's the sense of a ghost train, of a funfair ride, of a roller coaster where you can guarantee that you'll get to the end. But you're not sure in between. The fine line between horror and humor is something the ex-punk rock singer turned writer-director Simon Sprackling explored in his low-budget British horror movie Funny Man, 1994, which featured a harlequin from hell played by Tim James. I think the idea of the smile is an interesting one. Says Sprackling. The clown has this painted smile, and the painted smile can read two ways. Kids will pick this up in their own way because either they will have a trust with the adult well dressed up or they won't. What I really like about clowns and jesters is that they have this long history which takes us back through the pack of cards where you have the Joker to the tarot, where you're the fool. The great thing about jesters for me as the maker of a horror movie is that I've got a character who links me to the past, and I think that can be very effective, particularly if you're using old houses and that sort of Hammer Films feel. You need a sort of archaic character. Throughout the film, there are strong elements of dark humor in the horror, says Funny Man co-star Christopher Lee, and powerful horrific elements to the black comedy. I think those two strands combine and work well together. The Funny Man's witty one-liners always work in the context of what he's done, what he's going to do. He's brutal but funny, by which I mean he's genuinely eerie. We don't hold back on the violence, agrees Neil Gordon, who was responsible for the special effects of the film. And the comedy was our way around that. Instead of making a straight, gory horror film with Funny Man, you're laughing one moment and going, Jesus Christ, the next. So right and below are Archaeos clowns. Tim James is Funny Man. Funny Man, UK 1994, director Simon Sprackling with Tim James, Christopher Lee, Benny Young, Ingrid Lacey, Pauline Black, Matthew Devitt, Polygram Colored. Low-budget horror comedy in which the mysterious Callum, veteran Lee, brief cameo, purposely loses his ancestral home in a poker game to Max Young. When the winner, his family, friends, and assorted travelers arrived at the creepy old mansion, they were brutally killed off one by one by a demonic court jester, the funny man, James, in makeup by Neil Fortune, who has an evil sense of humor. So we've got the Chaos clowns here. Still from Funny Man. Basically, the character of the Funny Man in the script is the Joker from a pack of cards, continues Fortune. He was Mr. Punch, the Harlequin. The funny thing about clowning breaking the rules is fundamental for us, says Jason Kovach of Archaeos. We use our clown-like abilities to make people feel that they aren't safe, to make them feel that they might lose things, that they might lose their limbs, that they might lose their security, that they might lose their clothes, what they might become wet, or that they might lose their wallet, their children. So it's essentially a crossing over, breaking down that spectator performer boundary. In 1970, in Des Plaines, Illinois, a prosperous and popular building contractor, John Wayne Gacy, began working as a clown's entertainment filled with a clown. 8 years later, on 10 May, Robert Peast, age 15, of Des Plaines, disappeared. Police investigators were led to the home of Gacy, where they discovered human remains covered by lime in the crawl space beneath the house. After an insanity hearing lasting just over 5 weeks, Gacy was convicted of luring 33 young men and boys between the ages of 14 and 18 to his home in a modest suburban neighborhood near O'Hare International Airport, where from 72 to 78, he strangled them and buried them beneath the floorboards. 2 of the Keystone cops they had following me were eating a meal at a restaurant, said Gacy, and they were asking me why I did clowning with all the other things I was doing, that I couldn't have time. I told them because it was fun and it was relaxing from my business. Going to the hospitals, visiting kids and old folks was rewarding as well, and the parades were most fun, as you could run off into the crowd, kiss the women, squeeze their breasts with husbands and boyfriends watching, and run off with them laughing, thinking it was funny. When you're in makeup, clowns can get away with murder and nobody gets mad. Trouble is, the only part quoted is, Gacy says, clowns can get away with murder. Quote, I am distrustful of a man who laughs too readily, Lon Chaney Sr. We have an excerpt from the script. Part 2 opens in darkness. We've moved from the breathless dawn of part 1 into a darker world, a haunted world. Distantly, the sound of whale song, but closer horses gallop, distant incoherent shouts, the clash of arms. A light comes up in the old clown who is sitting astride a knackered old pantomime horse, preferably piebald. He is dressed ridiculously as a general. His hat bristles with tiny feathers. A wooden sword hangs forlornly at his side. He stares out at us unblinking. Enter Crazy Face, not seeing the horse or rider. He is breathless, having run a long way. He realizes that he was left the pig breeder's house a long way behind. He's safe, and he still has his coat. The horse neighs. Crazy Face turns around. Are you everywhere? The clown blows out a long, slow column of water, an eternal greeting. What are you doing here? You'll get yourself killed. We'll all get killed. The clown shrugs. What am I going to do? He took my box and he tried to kill me. What do you care? I was going to go to Rome, but there isn't much use for it now, is there? I go home, except that I keep seeing Lenny. The old clown looks at him sharply. Oh, so you know Lenny, do you? The old clown shrugs. You do, don't you? He's my brother. Somebody once told me all the clowns in the world were related, however distantly. All parts of one big, great family. Do you think that's possible? The clown shrugs. Nah, neither do I. From Crazy Face, a comedy with lions, a play by Clive Barker. Quote, he looked up and saw Pennywise the clown standing at the top of the left-hand staircase looking down at him. His face was white with grease paint, his mouth bled lipstick and a killer's grin. There were empty sockets where his eyes should have been. He held a bunch of balloons in one hand and a book in the other. From It by Stephen King. And then we've got some pictures. Cornucopia Clown and He Who Gets Slapped, and Conrad Veidt and The Man Who Laughs. So this is our cornucopia of clowns. That would actually be a really fun thing, though, like an actual, like literal cornucopia, and clowns keep falling out instead of the clown card, clown cornucopia. I'm gonna make that happen. And here's He Who Laughs. 1 minute past midnight on 11th May 1994, 52-year-old John Wayne Gacy was finally executed on death row for his crimes. His death took more than twice as long scheduled due to partial failure of the lethal injection device at the Stateville Maximum Security Prison in Joliet, Illinois. Hundreds of demonstrators gathered outside the prison as the deadline approached, many carrying carrying placards displaying such slogans as justice, justice, not too late, John Wayne Gacy, meet your fate, and stay goodbye, it's time for you to cry. What's interesting about the relationship between clowns and children is that we as adults assume that children find them funny, says Simon Sprackling. But that's our presumption. I think that when kids are looking, they're seeing an adult behaving in this rather particular fashion, which they can either find funny or they think there's something wrong with this. Quote, I used to love being a clown. It meant you could get away with murder. John Wayne Gacy. Quote, my art talent is a gift from God, and what I do with it is my gift back to God. I've done nearly 1,600 paintings now, and mostly clowns and some Disney characters upon request. John Wayne Gacy. And then here he is as Pogo the Clown. That is H for Harlequinade. I'm actually really impressed that they were able to keep that chapter fairly short, because I'm sure there's whole books dedicated just to clowns, especially if you're going to speak about them in terms of the Fool for the Tarot, the Joker, and the deck of cards, which your deck of cards actually came from the Tarot, but that's a whole nother thing that we could talk about another time. And then they kept on talking about Punch and Judy. So I don't know if they talk about that. The only reason I know about it is from theater class. I don't know if that ever gets brought up anymore. But Punch and Judy are the little puppets that you see fighting whenever you're watching films that are set, or movies, shows, whatever, plays that are set in like the 1800s. They could probably even go back to the 1600s. My memory is kind of fuzzy on it, but they're the little puppets that are always fighting, like literally fighting. They're actually in Little Mermaid earlier, or brought it up last week. And then they also are, I most recently saw them in Time Bandits, because I went to a screening of Time Bandits the other day, and Napoleon just thinks that they're just like the funniest thing ever, because he loves seeing the violence and the torture. It's just really bizarre, actually. But yeah, Harlequinade, clowns, and also just the general Fool. I like what Alejandro Jodorowsky has to say about that. He thinks that artists are the jesters of society, because artists are the ones who are going around and they're able to put up a mirror to society. But also, if you want to, the mirror can be absurdity. You know, you could be showing something that's like ridiculous, but also society will still understand it. That's a separate thing that's coming out on Daily Grindhouse. Whenever it drops, I will let you know, because I've been writing pieces on Jodorowsky films, and I'm going to be switching over into exploitation films soon. So, H for Harlequinade. Next week, we have I for Innocence. And we just keep, we just keep moving on. Thank you for reading with me.